Jonathan Majors interview. So a couple of things here. So one, I'm going to talk about the interview that he did with Good Morning America. But just to kind of give people a heads up, what I'm not going to do is further complicated breakdowns and dissections of Jonathan Majors and the trial and all that stuff. Because I mean, we literally went through everything from the very beginning to the very end where the verdict happened. And at this point, what even though outside of this interview, and let me just tell you now, this is not going to be a breakdown of the entire interview. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to go through some tidbits. I'm going to go through a couple clips. I also don't want to get this video taken down. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that moving forward, now this was always kind of the hope, but it's going to be way more focused on Jonathan Majors, the actor. I'm not going to get into the personal stuff. The only reason we really covered it was because anything that happened in his personal life potentially affected his future in Marvel and his other films. That's why I covered it before. But now that that stuff is long gone, I'm really going to focus more so on the actor, the movie news related to it. And I'm not going to get into the minutia about like, you know, this is what the legal stuff happened. I'm not doing all that. So there are other fine channels out there that are doing that. All power to them. Shout out to them. But that's where I'm telling y'all, I'm like, if you're looking for that, we're not going to keep doing that. This is not like a gossip channel. This is not like that. I do cover things in the movie realm, but we're not going to keep doing that and become obsessed with it in that light. So with that said, one thing that we do know with Jonathan Majors that has been unfortunate is that, you know, while I'm not 100% with the whole verdict, I do also understand that like it was always going to have a negative impact on him professionally. And one thing that we saw very early on was he was getting dropped. He was getting, you know, people were parting ways with him when it came to different projects, and it just did not stop. I mean, just recently, it was also announced here that Magazine Dreams, one of his other films that was picked up by Disney or Searchlight, does not have it's probably not going to get released. They did say that, you know, it more than likely will be given back to the filmmakers so that they can go shop that movie to somebody else. Maybe a streaming network will pick it up. Maybe somebody else will do it. But right now, Disney's like, we're good. And this also just then, this was breaking news. But unfortunately, when it rains, it pours, because Jonathan Majors is also being dropped from the Dennis Rodman movie called 48 Hours in Vegas. This is where he was going to play the legendary Chicago Bull NBA basketball player and champion, and talk about that famous 48 hours where he was in Las Vegas having a wild time during a championship run with my Chicago Bulls. But yeah, he is also now officially dropped from that. So with that said, I do have a couple clips here from the interview that we can go over. I'm going to play just a couple of them, and you know, we are going to just kind of like go over them real quick. Let's see. Here's one of them here. So one of these this clip right here, I thought was kind of good and relevant to talk about. Actually, let me load up a couple of these so we could just have them here. Because I do want to give a couple thoughts about things that we have talked about on here, and things that I thought were relevant. Let me label these things here. What's the other one? Let's get this other one here, and then we'll really get into this here. Okay. All right. So first one here, I thought was important to just kind of talk about, which was because one thing that I had said was that I felt as though Jonathan Majors should probably take a break. You know, I was like, you know what? The last thing you really need is to keep being in the headlines. But I will say that after this interview, I think I've changed my mind. And I think I changed my mind to the point where this interview, I think, probably does more help than it does harm because of what he says right here. And let's kind of listen to what he said.
Why did you decide you wanted to talk now?
I felt like it was time. A lot has happened in my personal life, in my career, in the culture, and conversely, the impact of this. It's about responsibility and coming forward and being brave and giving my part of the story.
Okay, so I do agree with him in that case, right? I do agree that for the sake of his career, for the sake of his image, and I'm gonna say this a couple times, and I think a lot of people miss this. His image and how he is perceived matters a lot. It goes one in one with his entire career. Now, I'll get into why that's more important a little later, but I do think that it's somewhat helpful for him to give his side of the story and to at least present himself in a manner that is counter to the verdict that was levied against him. Okay. So, in other words, this verdict makes him sound like this big abuser, but he, at least for the sake of his image, whether you agree with him or not, whether you agree with the verdict or not, this interview at least shows a softer side of him so that, at least image wise, it should help. Um, Now, this was something that I thought was helpful for him to talk about because this was a criticism, not even a criticism, but this was a point of concern that I had as evidence came out when it came to his relationship with Grace Jabari. So I do want to bring this up just because this was something I thought was important to talk about.
This requires. The prosecution has described your relationship with Grace Jabari as tumultuous and abusive. How would you describe that to your relationship?
I loved Grace. Our relationship was, it was not healthy, and that began to reveal itself over time, but there was no abuse.
Now, that I thought was important for him to say, right? It's important for him to sit here and say, I love this person, but this relationship was basically toxic. It was bad. It was not, because that was the one thing I started to notice once more the text messages came out, once more the testimony came out. I was like, "Ooh, y'all in a bad relationship." I'm not blaming one person more than the other. Both of y'all are in a very, very bad, thing here, right? So I think that that was definitely something um helpful to help humanize and help maybe sway some people to realize that, like, yeah, maybe he isn't like this big bad person that people are trying to make him out to be, because a lot of people are in toxic relationships. We all just don't have microscopes all over those relationships to overanalyze them and stuff, right? But then this was the other more concerning thing that was brought up that I definitely, this made me more concerned, and I'm glad that he addressed this.
Was, and I am.
The prosecution said you allegedly wrote, I'm a monster, a horrible man, not capable of love. I'm killing myself soon. I've already put things in motion. Were you suicidal?
I've been diagnosed with severe depression, and I'm taking the steps needed to alleviate, some of those symptoms, ideations of removing myself from situations permanently is a thought that I've had, since I was a kid.
Now, the reason why I liked that is because I feel like my man has definitely taken accountability, and um I've told you guys from the very jump that one of the biggest things that really concerned me in this whole trial was finding out that, he said that he was suicidal. I think that there should be no reason why when we hear of other celebrities, primarily white celebrities, when they talk about their mental health issues, and all of a sudden they get all these levels of sympathy and empathy and understanding, that when a black man sits here and admits that he was severely depressed and he was suicidal, that should not at least get similar sympathy and empathy and understanding. That was clearly evident in their text messages, that not just him, but also her too. But there was clearly some mental health issues going on. What gives me a lot more optimism here is the fact that he said he's taking the necessary steps. Jonathan has talked about him getting help, getting therapy, being in therapy and all that. And that, to me, I think is something that is necessary to be heard and to be said. So I do like the fact that my man recognized I was in a bad situation. I was in a bad place, but I'm doing better. And I mean, how many times have we heard about this when it comes to celebrities? I did this bad thing, that bad thing, whether it's drugs, whether it's this crime, that crime. Hell, even Ezra Miller, I'm getting help. I'm going to rehab. I'm getting therapy. Whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, I think what that speaks to is other people can see you're not a perfect person, but you're doing the steps that is required to be better. And that's literally the least we can all ask from any other human being. So I like the fact that he put that out there. I like the fact that he showed he is vulnerable. I like the fact that he showed that, yo, I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. I need help. And if anything, if it can work for other celebrities, there's no reason why it really shouldn't work for him as well. So I like the fact that that he brought that up. Now, of course, we do have to talk about the other thing that he brought up, and that is from the text messages, and that's with the whole Coretta Scott King thing. Now there were two clips that were brought up with this, and I do want to talk about both of those. Let's see. Hold on. Did I get them all? Yeah. Okay. It's gonna be the last one. All right. So now even I got into it with some folks online when it came to this whole Coretta Scott King thing. Let me go ahead and play the clip, and then we will talk about this to follow up.
A great woman.
There are some who question, especially in the Black community, as you're probably well aware, that people were saying, well, why was he telling this woman to be like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama? Give us like the context of the conversation.
It was me trying to give an analogy of what it is I'm aspiring to be. You know, these great men, Martin, President Obama, and trying to give a reference point to that. I was attempting, and I did a terrible job at it, apparently. I was attempting to motivate, to enlighten, to give perspective as into what it is I was hoping to get out of the relationship. I think that's fair.
I agree with him. And I agree that the whole Coretta Scott King thing is getting blown out of proportion. Now, it's not getting blown out of proportion for the reason some people think it is. And this is where I want to really clear this up. And let me be, okay, let me say this slow for the people all the way in the back. There's nothing wrong with any person having standards for the people that they're with or the relationship that they are trying to be a part of. Okay? There's nothing wrong if Jonathan Majors wants whoever he's with to be like insert civil rights activist here. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Do I got to go Dr. Umar and say it twice? There's nothing wrong with Jonathan Majors wanting his woman to be like Coretta Scott King, Michelle Obama, Jackie Kennedy, whatever. That's not the problem. Now let's talk about what the actual problem is for some people. Because some folks just don't get it. Listen, the problem people had with him bringing this up is because while we were going through the case, where did this whole thing come from? This text message came from something from the prosecution, the people that are literally there to talk against Jonathan Majors. Okay, that was the issue. The issue at that point was they brought it up completely out of context. We didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So because they brought it up out of context, it left it wide open for people to just talk about and come to their own conclusions. People were like, oh my gosh, how dare he sound like this? He wants to be a great man. He's doing great things for the culture. Again, that's not a crime. If the man thinks he's doing stuff for the culture, I don't care. Good for him. You know, but it rubbed some people the wrong way. And I think it was intentional because it was taken out of context. Now, before I go even further as to why this keeps being a thing, let's play the other side of this clip and we will address that more specifically because, oh my God, some folks just missed this entirely.
He was also present for our conversation.
You've mentioned Meghan a few times. We've seen her right by your side going in and out of court throughout the whole trial.
Yeah.
How would you describe your relationship?
That's a miracle. She's an angel. She's held me down like a Coretta.
Ah,
You know?
ah,
So have,
ah.
you know, the relationship is still fresh, but you know, I think I found her. Yeah.
The one.
I hope she just stick with me.
All right, all right. This is where all the controversy came up. Okay, and I admit, I even said it too. I was like, bro, not Coretta again. You're bringing up Coretta again. The reason why he's getting pushback again is not because the man wants a standard. That's not it. You literally are invoking evidence or basically a reference that came from the prosecution that already tried to muddy your name, muddy your reputation. Why would you even bring that up as a joke? Like, dog, at the end of the day, it's about optics. I'll be trying to tell people about this, and it clearly goes past some people's heads. Optics matter. What are optics? Optics are basically the outside factors that affect someone's public perception. And when it comes to celebrities, the optics and PR around them, the perception the public has, is literally one-in-one with their professional career. In other words, it does not matter. Oh my God, I gotta say this slowly for y'all. Some of y'all out there, it does not matter if you agree with his standard or not. It does not matter. Because if there are enough people out there that will basically still have a negative reaction to him with the whole Coretta thing, that's going to affect his pockets. That's going to affect. This is why celebrities always have to act and look like they're perfect. It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. It matters about how they're perceived and received by the general audiences. So if you're saying something and you're invoking something that already had some people feeling some type of way, it's not a good business decision to invoke that. Similar, let me give you a similar, okay? Let's think of politics. You have a certain presidential candidate who might want to run for president, but the talk has been that they want to be a dictator. Well, it's not very good politically as a strategy to make a joke that you're going to be a dictator first day in office. Because what you do is, whether you're joking or not, whether people agree with you or not, you're going to turn off certain people that potentially would have voted for you because they might believe you. So again, this is a question of optics. This is not a question of standards. This is not a question of, well, this is the right thing to do and this is morally okay. Morals and right and wrong, that ain't the case. So this whole Coreta Scott King thing, it was really just a bad PR move. That's why he was getting the pushback. Because it's like, bro, and I'll give you another example. He was talking about Megan Good holding him down. Do you realize that everything this man said would have conveyed exactly the same way had he just left Coretta out of it? Man, she held me down. Man, she's been supportive. Man, I love her. Man, I found the one. Great. You did it. But when you're going to invoke something that the prosecution tried to use against you that already got some people feeling some type of way about you, bro, that's not a good business move. It's just not. Because now you're getting in the headlines for things that are nonsensical. The fact that this was making headlines, nobody sat here and said Jonathan Majors is seeking therapy. Nobody said on headlines, Jonathan Majors is getting his life together. Jonathan Majors is going to fight this appeal. You didn't see those headlines. What headlines did you see? Jonathan Majors and Coreta Scott King. Jonathan Majors. That's not the attention you want. And that's the reason why I'm sitting here like, bro, why did you say this? Because you got to understand how the media and the social peoples react. So I'm saying that I was like, bro, why Coretta? Because I'm looking at your career and I'm like, I want you to come back. I need you to get a better PR team and somebody to train you a little better. Bro, don't bring up nothing else that the prosecution said against you unless you got something very positive. Don't make no more jokes, okay? Don't say no more. So anyway, that's why I think there was a lot of pushback. And again, it's an optics issue. It's a PR issue. It has nothing to do with the standards. Okay. It's okay if somebody wants to be the next MLK. Whether they do it or not, that's a different story. But that's their prerogative. Fine. All right. Now, as for the actual movie related stuff directly, and this is what I really wanted to go over. He gives his reaction to being fired by Marvel, and he also talks about his future as an actor. And I thought this is where the real meat and potatoes was for the interview. So here we
His
go.
career as a rising Hollywood actor is now in limbo. Future appearances playing Kang the Conqueror in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have been scrapped.
You hear the verdict
Yeah.
the same day Marvel drops you. Your reaction?
Same hour. Same half hour, I think. It's like the world stopped. You know, it's like you work so hard for things, and then, you know, it's done, you know? And in that same breath, I thought, man, that was cool.
How so?
I was a supervillain, you know? And I got to play multiple characters, you know, with a group of people that really cared nothing about anything else except making really cool movies and giving their actors whatever they need to tell those stories.
Let me just pause it right there so the algorithm don't stop me real quick. I'm gonna go back to it. But first of all, Marvel came with the quickness. Okay. The second that verdict came out, Marvel had that run the presses, go with it. They was on that sucker fast. Okay. But that's how quickly an actor's career can just come and go. It's very, very sad that this all came down crashing on this brother over misdemeanors. That's very, very sad. You know, usually we see these actors going, you know, getting in trouble for like really, really bad things. Like, yo, you beat somebody up. Yo, you did some drugs. You stole this. You killed this person. You know, it's usually something bigger. But to see an entire career just go out like that, yikes. Just yikes, you know. But again, this is why I was saying optics matter. Marvel, again, they had zero obligation to stick with Jonathan Majors. And I think, once again, some people get this confused. Some people don't really understand the difference between being morally right, something being legally right, and the operations of PR and business. Marvel does not care about whether you morally right, whether you legally right or wrong. It's a question of how will this affect our bottom line? So if being associated with someone that has been in the headlines, found guilty, it doesn't matter if we agreed with the verdict. It doesn't matter if we agreed with the persons involved. How is this going to affect our business and our headlines moving forward? Are people going to constantly keep talking about, hey, you guys have this person that's accused of beating on women? It's like, does Marvel really want to go on with that? So, of course, you know, as mentioned, boy, they had that whole article in the drafts. They had that. Listen, they had that up there since March. I promise you that. They had that decision in the works for a long time. And they was just waiting. And I still give them kudos for waiting, because they could have left him 8 months ago. They could have left him right when everybody else left him. But they waited. They let the due process go through. And that was it. So they made that business move. I get it. It is what it is, but it's definitely more business than anything. But hold on. There was more that he says here.
And I'm so proud of it.
You think you'll ever work in Hollywood again?
Yeah, I do. I pray I do. But it's God's plan and God's timing.
For those who say, look, he's convicted at this point, what would you say? I mean, do you deserve a second chance?
Well, I think I do. I think I do. I hope other people think that.
Well, I'll say officially, I do think he deserves a second chance. You know, I hope that he, when it comes to Jonathan Majors, I told you a couple things he got to do. First of all, you got to treat Megan Good right. You got to not get in the headlines with no more relationship issues. Just don't do that. I definitely think he needs to take a break. He's got to just step away from the headlines for like a year, maybe two. You just got to step back. Go ahead and fight your appeal. See if you're, now I think if you can win the appeal, I think that works. I think that definitely can work in his favor. But we've seen worse people have issues and come back. We've seen worse. Now, I don't know the legal issues. I mean, he hasn't even been sentenced yet. So I don't know how long an appeal would take. I don't know, could he get an appeal in time to come back to Marvel? I don't know. Um, Personally, I'm not so worried about him being in Marvel. I'm more worried about him just being able to work like as an actor because the guy is super talented. So the Marvel thing, yes, it's a loss, it's a miss, it hurts, but I'm more concerned about this brother's future overall. I hope that again, he continues getting whatever help. He continues like just backing out, staying out the headlines, and I hope he does get back because one thing that we've always hoped for with anybody is when you mess up, hopefully you feel contrition for your actions. Hopefully you pay them off in some way. You get whatever help. And yeah, who doesn't want a second chance? I think it would be way too judgmental of anybody to sit here and be like, well, he should never work again. Like at all? At all? Like, yeah, I don't know about all that. Do y'all know what happens in Hollywood most of the time? I don't know. Anyway, what do you guys think about the interview? I do encourage y'all to actually watch the full interview. I don't know how long. I think it's like 17 minutes long, something like maybe a little longer. So that little 6-minute thing is not the full interview. If that's what you saw, you can go check out the full interview, as well. But I thought it was actually pretty good for him. I still think he needs to back out. Like, don't say no more. Like, get your sentence in, do your time, hang out with your woman, support her, love her, and come back later. Come back later when nobody's looking. Jump into that Spike Lee movie, do this other role, let your work speak for itself, stay out of trouble, and be all right. I think he'll be all right. I hope he'll be all right. But y'all let me know, what did you think about the interview? What thoughts did you have? Are you mad about the Coretta Scott King thing? I don't know. Whatever you think, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. This was just a segment of one of my live chats, and if you're interested in joining in on the next one, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications for more. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.